Welcome to Moments with Marianne. This is your host, Marianne Pastana. And we're here today with special guest, John Siddique, who's here to share with us his book, Signposts of the Spiritual Journey, a practical roadmap to a meaningful life. So do you feel stuck spiritually? If so, today's show is just for you. John Siddique is a British spiritual teacher, poet, and author with over 40 years of experience. He is the founder of Authentic Living, which shares his insights and the uniquely helpful roadmap of the spiritual journey, highlighting the changes that show us we're making progress and the obstacles that will certainly come up. So welcome to the show, John Siddique.
Hi, Marianne. Thank you so much for having me on. It's lovely to be here. And hello, everybody listening. Great to be with you.
What an honor it is to have you here and to talk about this book. I've just been thinking about this. What started you on this path?
Well, I mean, this is, this is the long version. But with the book itself, it just sort of came out of, I felt a necessity in a way, because there's so many sort of books in this field, in the kind of spirituality field or the sacredness field or whatever, that tend towards kind of adaptation of a lifestyle. And I've always really been interested in life and actually being here on the planet, and not kind of living in the future or the past, but what is it like to be here right now? So I think underpinning that, but also my own entire journey, is this sense of authenticity and presence, and what comes from accessing that kind of truth that's just right here, not looked for, but actually implicit within each of us.
Well, you have a quote in the beginning of your book that really stuck with me. Regardless what brings you to your path, the first signpost is always marked by the rising of questions. Can you expand on that for us?
I think unless you're asking certain questions and they're arising for you on your own, then you probably won't know that there's even a path. I found this in my own life, and I've seen it as being a teacher now with others. That you can't convince somebody of anything, nor should you. And what might seem sort of perfectly obvious to you is absolutely meaningless to somebody else. And there comes a time in every person's life, but I think these things are there all the time. We just swamp them out with just trying to get on day to day, or we've grown up in spaces where there's been no self-reflection and it's not been encouraged, and so on. So without the natural arising of these simple questions, which are, who am I? What am I here for? And you may also arrive at, how do we end suffering? Or, I have suffering, how do I bring this to some sort of conclusion or move on from here? Unless those things are there, then you're not going to be even looking for a path in the first place, nor can anything really reveal itself to you. It's almost like that natural curiosity that is inside each of us, if allowed its own space, is the step onto the spiritual path, which is the path of each person's own life, not ascribed to by somebody else.
Yeah, it's really kind of getting off that, continuous track, it sounds like, and asking the questions. And I feel like your book really invites people to start questioning, maybe if they don't even know how.
I think that's right. I think somebody was being a bit naughty with me recently in an interview, and they said, "So you think you have all the answers, do you?" And I said, "Well, no, but I may have some of the questions." And I think asking a question, we're in this time at the moment where everybody has an answer for everything. Everybody has an opinion seemingly for everything. We all think we know all things, or there's an answer on social media somewhere. But that robs us of so much. And the thing that it really robs us of is space within ourselves and space to learn. You can't learn anything or grow or heal if you're already full. And the asking of a question left unanswered with oneself is the key to actually opening up space in the first place. And it's something that anybody can begin working with. If you just ask the question and then kind of leave it sort of in the air with yourself and gently be with it, it will then provide you space in which you can see new things.
Is that because everyone's answer is different and very personalized, as is their perception?
No, well, yes and no. Both is, I think, the answer to that. I think in the kind of hyper individualistic times that we're in, I think we use that kind of language. And I think we think that. And yet, because of each person's separate conditioning, each person sees a separate thing. Just the family that you were raised in, the socialization process that you've been through, the schooling, the area you grew up in, what the values of the house hold are, the community that you're in. We believe those things to be right. We believe that culture to be right, and we identify ourselves as part of those things. But of course, then another person raised differently is going to think that their thing is the right thing, and which is why we seem to kind of operate by seeking agreement with each other, forming into tribes around beliefs and stuff like that. But what I find with authenticity and what we might call the space of the soul or awareness, there's a deeper truth that kind of underpins all that. You might call that life itself, and it will present differently through each person because each person is an absolute unique flower of life. But you hear from different religions where people have had awakenings or shifts into enlightenment or satoris. You hear from people outside of religions who have had near-death experiences and so on, or just people in everyday lives. And it's almost like there's something that's just true underneath everything.
It's interesting. I know in your book you talk about awareness, and it seems we're in this point of history where that word gets thrown around a lot. And for maybe our listeners are going, well, how does awareness play into this, and what do you even mean by that?
Yeah, that's a great comment, actually. Thank you. Awareness is not what we are creating ourselves. Awareness is absolutely implicit to living beings. The fact that we know that we're thinking, for example, is awareness. The fact that we have five senses, they operate through the autonomic nervous system, but they actually feed into awareness first. And then each person can notice that even just like the sense of touch, if you rub your own fingers together, that's received somewhere deeper in us first. And then the mind moves. So awareness is that kind of underlying characteristic that is being itself in a way, and expresses through the life in the body. So that's kind of what I mean by awareness. But awareness, we take it these days to often mean, kind of being au fait with certain things, and being able to say things in a certain way, being for something or against something. Whereas awareness itself, while we may choose where we position ourselves in the kind of relative world, awareness itself has that taste of actually fundamental truth about it. And it's within each of us. We each know it. Every single person knows, whether we admit it or not, when something is a lie or not, or if something is authentic or not. We can hear it in the slightest tone of a false laugh. We hear it in the way that people speak to us, and we know we're not in a win-win situation. And we put up with these things and we cover them over because we want to get on and stuff like that. But we really know, we're far more than we allow ourselves to think that we are a lot of the time.
It's amazing how small sometimes we keep ourselves. And
Absolutely.
I felt
Yeah,
like your book really is asking people, inviting people to kind of look at them, look at their life in a different way.
I think so. I think that's absolutely a lovely way to look at it. Thank you. Yeah, it is. It's an invitation. Um, and it's not saying you are small, do my method and get bigger, uh, kind of thing. It's not like 6 minute abs or something like that. It's really just a really honest invitation. And I've only got the voice and the ability that I have as a writer and so on. But through that instrument and this life, to just honestly kind of put down things as kind of simply as possible, not so that you see this way as being the right way, but so that you ask these questions for yourself and reflect for yourself. It's just a means for that, really, because we really need to allow our greater selves, I think. And I think we're at that point in time now where it's really a kind of you know make or break, quite honestly.
Thank you for clarifying that. So, yeah, I was definitely in alignment with what you were saying. And it's interesting, but, I hear people saying all the time that, they feel like their lives are small or they're not living up to their potential. And it's, sometimes heartbreaking. You even hear people say, hey, I don't even like what I do. So, how would they be able to find a path and know that that's their spiritual path?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. The question I would gently ask, uh, if I was speaking to that person, our hypothetical person, is you know the things that you think are the way forward. Who told you that? The things that we see as being success uh, in this day and age. Where have those ideas come from? And they're often part of that kind of conditionality that we're talking about. So, as I say, if we allow that kind of, and it's not a blankness, but that kind of living awareness within ourselves, and of course, it's a graduated path depending on, um, how much sort of access to consciousness we have, and each person, because of their conditioning, will be at a different point along their journey. But it's actually within each person's own life. And I think that's where I've really gone with signposts. It's that, you know, if you plant an acorn, it's not going to grow into a cherry tree. But we live in a time where we think we have the right to be a cherry tree, even if we're an acorn. And we will kind of, even make war with others to say, no, no, I am a cherry tree. No matter what, you have to call me cherry tree now. And I think you have a right to call yourself anything you want, but actually, if you just kind of come back to your own soul and actually allow the seed of life to move through you with the gauge of authenticity, authenticity operates like a compass. And when we first begin, we can just start feeling into that. And as that kind of compass swings to our kind of true north within ourselves over and over again, if we allow ourselves the smallest step forward, we will see ourselves moving. But if we judge ourselves by the outer conditionings, like I'm in this job that I don't like, my relationship has gone like this, things have gone like that, these people are like this, the country has gone like this, then if we kind of pin too much of our identity into those things, then we're just going to be kind of kept turning on the wheel. Whereas we can have interest and love about those things, but we need to be seated within the self and allow that authenticity to kind of lead us forward. Then when we look at those things, we'll actually see different spaces there. I often think this. It's interesting you bring this up. If you had a kind of real kind of tricky job or something you didn't enjoy, you can either kind of push against it or you can kind of come back into oneself with it. And it's not going to magically transform, but if you kind of are in presence within that space, it's going to kind of give you a very, very different relationship to it. And things will change, or if they won't change, which is quite interesting, situations like that tend to kind of move you out of them themselves, which is really quite interesting to allow you to move on. Like relationship, for example, often does that.
So, if someone's looking to make that pivot and move from this really negative mindset, where would they start?
Drop to the heart. Simple as that, really. I mean, because that's what happens. We look to the mind to find an answer. And Einstein famously said, a problem cannot be sorted, I'm paraphrasing, at the same level that it's created. So if you're just entering into it at exactly the same level, then nothing is going to happen apart from opposing forces or more turning of the wheel. But the dropping to the heart, and I actually mean that quite physically, that we feel into the heart, and we can even do this by just putting our hand on our hearts and making a kind of kind contact with ourselves, allowing that kind of humility to kind of be there. Then we have some space to see. It's always the heart.
In your book, you talk about moving from reaction to response. And I think a lot of people are trying to tap into that right now, saying, hey, how do I make those changes? And are there any cues or anything I need to know to do that?
That's wonderful. Because we have, well, yes, there are actually. And without kind of giving away all the kind of the secrets in the book, in a way. Again, I would use the awareness word, but more than that, in a way. Reactivity isn't something to kind of to try not to do. If we try not to react and be reactive, then we're going to kind of limit ourselves. We're going to kind of squeeze ourselves down. So I'm not one for kind of trying to apply lots of external changes to ourselves. And when I work with my students and through the apps that I work with and so on, and through this book, I talk a lot about not actually trying to change yourself into an idea that you have of how you could be better, because that's only still an idea. But if you are in reaction with something, the thing to do is to notice that you are in reaction. If you notice that you're reacting, then you are actually aware, you see. So if you notice that it's happening, then you can kind of come out of it. So say you're in an argument with your partner or a friend or something, and you're in it, and you're in that place where you're just yakking away at each other. Maybe the voices are getting louder. You're talking over each other, not even listening. There's part of you that knows you've gone, and usually that kind of being lost in things, whether that's within relationship or politics or anything, it kind of tips over and our consciousness really narrows. And I find that most people end up in a very kind of narrow space in their heads, just right in the front lobes, and we kind of push forward, and then the ego gets on board, and we have to defend ourselves because we have to be right, so it almost feels like a kind of personal attack in a way. So if we allow ourselves to kind of see that happening without shame or guilt about it, but we see it happening, and maybe even just put our hand on our heart or feel our feet on the floor and allow ourselves to come back into the body, to feel the life in the body, say, something like that, then we can choose to actually just stop. We can actually just stop. And my wife and I do this these days. We actually just go, do you realize we're in this place right now? Yeah, actually I do. One of us will spot it before the other. Should we stop then? Yeah. So the service of love, or that kind of aware space, gradually becomes more important, you see.
Yeah, my goodness. I mean, to be able to really realize that and have your partner engage in that as well. I mean, what a nice place to come from.
It's absolutely fantastic. But you see, it's not a unique thing, and it's not. It's everybody's life has this in it. It's just literally. I talk a lot in the book about allowing. That the most important aspect that we have is allowing, and this is what we don't do. We don't allow self-reflection. We don't allow questions. And we're so committed to reactivity because we're told that that's what the modern way of life is, and that we have to win everything, as it were, even if our opinion is wrong, that we lose that. But I would say that respondability, or the ability to respond, is equivalent to love. Again, so it comes back to the heart.
Everything leads back to the heart. I love
that. It certainly does, yeah. And I'm going to be like a broken record by the end of our chat.
Well, on that note, we're going to pause here for a quick break. We've been speaking with John Siddique in regards to his book, Signposts of the Spiritual Journey, a practical roadmap to a meaningful life. We'll be right back after these messages from our sponsors.
Are you an actor, public speaker, or an executive telling your story over Zoom? Jean-Louis Rodrigue and Scott Weintraub's new book, Back to the Body, takes the process they use to coach top Hollywood talent like Margot Robbie, Jack Black, and Ke Huy Quan and makes it available to everyone. Using your body and its energy as a point of departure, your work will gain an enhanced level of performance and depth. Back to the Body, available on Amazon and wherever books are sold.
Every day, pets are surrendered and abandoned. For these helpless and hurting animals, Paws Humane Society acts as a voice for the voiceless, providing hope for a brighter future. You can make a difference in the life of a shelter pet. Become a humane hero today. Just $10 a month will provide much-needed food, shelter, medical care, and love. It takes a community. It takes heroes like you. Together we can. Together we will. Together we are Paws Humane. Visit pawshumane.org to be a hero in every animal story.
What if everything we think we know about addiction, depression, anxiety, and trauma is missing the one key element that will actually let you walk away from them for good? My name's Bob Gardner, founder of The Freedom Specialist and creator of a body-based approach that eliminates suffering and creates happiness, health, and well-being on autopilot. You can read all about it in my book, Built for Freedom, or start your own adventure toward lasting freedom at thefreedomspecialist.com.
If you want to stop divorce fast, you do not need to waste years in therapy, you do not need to work on yourself, and you do not even have to have your spouse on board. If your spouse wants out, if they're filing for divorce, separation, or having an affair, what you need is a proven process to turn your marriage around. Book a free breakthrough session with us at highthrivecoaching.com/apply.
Dr. Richard London, who has 25 years of experience being known as the Man of Steel with the Heart of Velvet, presents the Life Wellness System, The Road to Yes, a mentoring system that brings you to becoming a wellness heir. Imagine having wealth, wellness, love, peace, and spirituality in abundance and balance now. Visit doctorateoflife.com or call 720-213-8021 for a free 15-minute wellness evaluation.
The first thing you need to know about me is that I love my kids, but they are not my everything. They used to be, but that's when my entire life fell apart. In order to pick back up the pieces, I had to put the love I have for myself before everything else, including my kids. I'm Jessica Dennehy, and I own multiple businesses. I'm a best-selling author, and I have all the strategies that I've used to make my life what it is today. And I'm going to teach you how to do them in my new book, Selfish is a Superpower. So go get your copy today on Barnes & Noble or jessicadennehy.com.
Announcing a revolutionary tool for wellness. Scalar Light has the ability to enhance and harmonize your own bioenergies. With Scalar Light, you can get started in just minutes and begin feeling better the very next day. Scalar Light is a remote energy that gently and subtly works with your own body's bioenergies, increases pro-cellular wellness, and enhances your body's immunity.
Experience the benefits of Scalar Light. Try a complimentary 15-day experience at scalarlight.com.
In your hands lie ancestral patterns. These patterns shape how you think, what you struggle with, and experiences you love, your life pattern. We're going into the latest neuroscience of biological hand analysis, a realm beyond palmistry where science and the soul entwine. Hand analysis is the latest method to transform lifelong patterns. I am Master Hand Analyst Brent Bruning. Join us and visit thepowerinyourhands.com.
I'd like to thank Jason Eastwood at Guitarfulness for sharing his inspiring music and talent with us. His music is known worldwide for cultivating atmospheres of harmony, inner peace, and clarity. Visit Jason's website at guitarfulness.com. Join his newsletter, be part of his community, and download his music. Welcome back to Moments with Marianne. We're here today with special guest John Siddique, who's sharing his book, Signposts of the Spiritual Journey, a practical roadmap to a meaningful life. I've heard people question how they can live life differently. They know that what they're doing isn't working for them. They just don't know how to make changes. And many times what they're doing is they're following the same beliefs, behaviors, and programming that they learned from their parents and grandparents. It's almost like they're living in a recording that they don't even know that they're doing. How do they get to this place where they can first recognize this and then move forward in a way that's productive for them?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as we talked about, so that's what I call kind of conditionality in a way. It's just like generational conditioning. Jung talks about this a great deal. And until we actually deal with that and admit that it's there, rather than kind of taking it on as our kind of inheritance and our right to kind of, affect the world around us in a certain way, nothing much is going to shift for anybody, which is kind of going right back to the beginning of the book, which is, if you ask yourself, who am I? Well, am I, my parents? Am I their love model? Am I, what they taught me about sexuality? Am I their financial values? Am I? You can question every single thing. All it takes is a little bit of kind of. It doesn't take courage. It takes allowing. We think we have to be courageous to do these things, but that's just ego thinking it's courageous. Allow with simplicity and softness and kindness for yourself. And it's not dissing our parents. It's not putting them down. They knew what they knew. They did what they did. They were the best that they could be. Otherwise, they would have been something else. But if you have that facility in you to just simply say, is this true? Am I this? It doesn't mean we have to throw them away. We can have compassion, but we can actually start following that compass of what seems more authentic to us then, instead of being in reaction to it.
Does this help people that are also looking to maybe move to another dimension? Because I know spiritually, a lot of people are looking to do that right now.
Yeah, I don't kind of think in those terms because what I've found with my own life is that the place that I've ended up is right here, which means not lost in things. So in a way, it is another dimension in that it's not on the level of conditionality. But actually, where you find yourself is right in the midst of life itself. So, a kind of a true spirituality doesn't take us away into kind of some fairy dreamland, where everything is kind of crystal trees and all that. Although there is a kind of crystalline nature to life, but it plants us firmly on the ground right here, and we find ourselves still amongst people, and the heart has to move. Here we are back at the heart again. The heart has to move with kindness and compassion for those who are still in that other place. In a way, they are in another place. They are in another dimension because they're hanging on for grim life or grim death to meaningless things or things that we realize have not served us well. But what we always have to remember as a source of compassion is 10 minutes ago, 1 month ago, 1 year ago, that was us too.
At what point do we actually get the answers to the questions we ask?
I think it begins in the asking of the question itself. Within that leaving of the space, the minute you say, I don't know, the minute you say, I don't know, there's a potential for knowing. But if we look to the mind for the answer, the mind is only a container of what we already have learned. So it's just going to echo around on itself. But life wants to show us all the time. You'll hear other people, again, it's a different language to what I use, but people talk about spirit guides or their intuition. or they see something on the side of a bus or on the side of a truck, and it's like a message for them. You open a book, and it's seemingly exactly the right page. You flip open a poem, and there's a message right to you. You look in the the LA Times or something, and you're reading a sports page, but there's a line that says to you, "No, this is the way home." So life is trying to talk to us all the time, and so we come back to this kind of function of allowing within ourselves, just simply allowing, rather than hardcore kind of pushing at something. Allow yourself to see what's right there. But if you look to the mind, if the ego is looking and the mind's looking, then you're just going to get these weird reflections, which is why it takes something a little bit deeper, in us. And I think where we're at is that we often think we're doing that, but we haven't really committed to it. One of the things I found very useful in my own life was the fact that I died in 2014. I actually passed away and kind of came back, which is very interesting in itself. But I'm lying in the intensive care unit, dying of this infection, and the doctor comes to me. I didn't know I was dying, but the doctor comes to me, and he said, "I'm really sorry. I do feel I should tell you and your partner that this is it. This is it. Tomorrow you're not going to be here." I actually was still around at about 9 o'clock the next morning, but not for much longer. And I don't want people to have to get to that point. That's one of the reasons I wrote this book. I don't want people to have to get to this point before they actually smell the coffee, as it were. Because I realized in that moment that I had a choice of either to open my heart and be here, or to carry on running around in the stories if only my life should have been this and I really should have been that. And instead, do I spend this last day with this person that I love and actually be present? So I think that's a choice that we have today, because we don't know if today is the last day.
None of us know our expiration date,
No,
so
that's right.
Yeah, it's interesting just the perception that you have from, going through, a near-death experience. How did that change you coming back? I know you mentioned a few things.
Oh, crikey. I mean, I do talk about this, but there's so many things to it. Well, I'm not the same person that I was at all. I kind of wish Abba, my partner, was here. I would say, talk to her. She's better at telling you. I'm nothing like the guy from before. Nothing. I was so angry. I was mad at everything, raging about everything. I was always right about everything. And now I'm happy to not be. Happy to be a spiritual nobody, even just being here rather than trying to kind of excel at anything. And yet at the same time, there's this kind of love of life. And I will say that it is harder here than the other place, which is quite interesting to talk about. At first, when I kind of came back, it was really strange. I couldn't speak for a couple of years properly. I lost the mind that I'd spent my entire life creating, and the words and the identities and things that I was living through. I used to be the kind of person, Marianne, that would make sure people knew I was a writer, to try and have some status, to try and get people to like me. Now, who cares, There's books, but that's actually not important. What's really important is are you and I actually with each other in this moment?
Well, that is so beautiful. I think a lot of people, they look at it going, gosh, I've been angry for a long time. Maybe I need to take a change. Maybe I need to make changes here.
Yeah, that's it. And the change is not an egoic, grunting, pushing, hurting of yourself, but just simply allow what's true in you already, which is your own soul, which is your awareness. And as I say, the kind of the simplicity of just asking, who am I? Am I this? Am I just the money in my bank account? Then it's not to find a no, it's to find out that we are, well, I may have this money or not money in my bank account, but actually I'm more than that. And that feeling of more than is actually who you are.
Where do you feel, when you're talking with people, like one of the places that you see people really get stuck?
There's stuckness all the way along, quite honestly. So even people who we might assume to be really far on down the path have their things. If the ego attaches to something, which it can attach to anything, and if say you're seen as a spiritual leader or something like that, but then your ego attaches to that, and it becomes more important to be how you're seen rather than being kind of honestly yourself with people, then you're in trouble. And yet this operates all the way along. It's not really a scale, but we will use the word scale, all the way along the path of awareness, or all the way along the path of awakening. Awakening even in itself, you see people who have awakening experiences, satori's, and so on. And then they attach to this thing, thinking that they're fully cooked, not understanding that, and then hold on to this and actually project an image from that and set up all sorts of things. But actually, awareness and awakening is a endlessly unfolding thing that just keeps teaching you again and again and again if you allow it. So life will always kind of keep unfolding. So the place I think we get really stuck is on what I would call identity. On this is what we are, instead of allowing that to be a fountain of life, as I would call it, or a kind of an ongoing thing, without really needing to know, without really needing to say, actually.
What is one of the greatest things that you learned from not just writing this book, but from your NDE experience?
That we are loved. That we are loved, that we have always been loved, that we are acceptable even if we don't wake up, that even if we make the greatest mess in the world, that does not taint the soul in any way. And that actually what is, if you want to call it that, life, if you want to call it that, God, the universe, if you want to call it that, we've never been away. We've never been away from anything from like that at all. That we are held in this, but what's keeping us from it is our non-allowing of ourselves.
What thoughts would you like to leave our listeners with today?
Well, thank you for listening and being here with us, and is one thing, and that our ordinary lives, your ordinary life, is the path itself. It might not look like it because of where we're at situationally and so on at this point in time, but you were here to be you, not the situation, but life brought you here to be you. And we feel back into our childhood or whatever, and we see this kind of, seed and potential within ourselves, and we are still that. Very often there's a kind of a period of life or lives where we're not in sync with that, but actually we can always return to that because it's never left us at all. So the path of your own life is the spiritual path itself. I think if there's one thing that I would love to put across from this book, Signposts, The Spiritual Journey, is that really we can look to other people for maps, and it's a lovely thing, if somebody's had an illness, the best person to talk to is somebody else who had that illness and got well. Find out what they did. Now, that might work for you and it might not. At least it might give you some clues in the right direction. And that's all I hope for with this book and, whatever books come later. And I think that's all that any teacher actually hopes for in a way, in that it's just a map that might help you, as it were. But still, the only person who's going to walk your journey through your life is you. And just know that it's all about love.
Do you have I'm sure people are running to the store to pick this book up so they can start their own practice. I've got mine. So, but so let's say someone picks up the book and they've gone through it and they're like, hey, you know what? I think I need a little bit more help or a little bit more to understand this. Do you have workshops you do or teaching events?
I do, yeah. I teach a lot online these days for obvious reasons, like everybody else in the world. And I'm very easy to find. You just come and have a look on my website, which is authenticliving.life, or you can find me on Instagram and Twitter just by my name. And I do put things on kind of quite often. And every single month there's an event called the Open Space, which is my favorite thing, which is just done on Zoom. And I've tried to fulfill a need with this event, which is that everybody is welcome to come to the Open Space, because it's a place where we just sit in silence and in being with each other. And you might think, well, how am I going to get answers in something like this? But you might think you've got to be a certain kind of person to be a meditator or be on the spiritual path, that you have to be of this political view or that political view. But I found in this life that if we shut up and actually just shut up for a minute or two, our souls tend to fall in love with each other if we just let ourselves be, and then we'll sort out the other stuff. So that's the point of the Open Space. So everybody's welcome to that. And it's donation only, so it's accessible to everybody.
That's encouraging, because then people can leave, their worries, their stresses, whatever behind, and just focus on being present.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you don't really know anything about the other people there and so on. And so that's really good, because normally when we meet, the first thing we do is, what do you do? We're trying to suss out how much money the person makes, try to find out their political leanings, stuff like that. So we're looking for those markers of identity to see if we are kind of part of tribe or if we're in danger from an egoic point of view and so on. So if we take that out of the equation, we might actually have to start doing something with each other that's more of life.
Well, John, can you share your website one more time?
Yeah, sure. It's www.authenticliving.life.
That is perfect. Well, John, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Thank you, Marianne. It's been an absolute delight.
Well, thank you, John. It's been such an honor to spend this time with you and to talk about your book, Signposts of the Spiritual Journey, a practical roadmap to a meaningful life. Also now available is Meditations for the Journey. Make sure to visit John's website to see about downloading those. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne, where we make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.